Welcome to Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. My name is Brandon Bornanson, a serial salesperson and entrepreneur, and I'm sitting down with the world's best sales experts to share their top secrets to sales success. Hello and welcome to this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. And I am thrilled, honored, humbled, and grateful to have with me today my good friend, expert guru, Marylou Tyler. Marylou is the founder of Strategic Pipeline. She's a Fortune 1000 outbound sales improvement consulting group expert. Her clients include some small companies like Apple, Bose, Talend, Prudential, UPS, AAA, Mastercard. And for those of you, you probably know her like I do, as the co-author of the #1 best-selling book, Predictable Revenue, turning your business into a sales machine with the $100 million best practices of Salesforce.com. And if you didn't know, that book sold over 50,000 copies, has over 250 reviews on Amazon, and is literally revolutionized the sales development game in this space. She's also the author of Predictable Prospecting, How to Radically Increase Your Sales B2B Pipeline. And it was published with McGraw-Hill. It's already being touted as a must-read book for any professional in sales or business who prospects for new business. And she's also been nominated by one of the top women to watch in sales. Marylou, I am a huge fan. You have changed my life. You have changed the life of hundreds of thousands of salespeople. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Great intro. Wow.
I know. Anytime you go on stage and you need a hype man,
I know who to call.
You got my number because, before we connected, Marylou and I have been connected for a while, and I've been reading all of her books, reading all of her content, and sharing all of her strategies with a lot of our customers. And I was telling her when I was selling for IBM and Google, and more specifically Google, I was doing 7-figure deals. And I was doing the prospecting, the pitching, and the closing. And my close rate on 7-figure deals when I would be pitching would be really high. And my close rate on prospecting would be really high too, but I had no time to do both obsessively. Mm-hmm. And I went to my chief revenue officer, and luckily Jeff is like I am, just always in a constant state of optimization. And I created the business case. We have to separate inside sales from outside sales. And I gave him that business case, and he's like, okay, let me just talk to our chairman and our CEO. And I'm like, oh, great. This is going to take 3 months. Marylou and Aaron Ross published the book literally 3 days after I give Jeff the business case. I buy the book. Who wouldn't buy the book? $100 million best practices of Salesforce.com. I buy the book, throw it on Jeff's desk, and I'm like, boom. This is why we need to move forward with this right away. I read it in like 6 hours. I was so... I locked the doors, read it so fast. But anyways, we moved forward with that model. It changed my life. It helped me become a multi-million-dollar earner in sales and has changed the lives of so many people, all of your books and your work. Thank you again so much for having us today, or joining us today.
This is great. No, I'm happy to be a part of this. And so much has changed, but yet so much is still the same. So.
I know. And that's why you evolved, right, from predictable revenue to predictable prospecting. And I'm sure there's a bunch of other work that you have in the works that we'll talk about. But the audience, just to set the page for anyone joining the book interviews, the video, the podcast, wherever this is going to be broadcasted, in airports, you name it, they're dying to know 2 things, Marylou. One, what is your top sales secret? Sales secrets from the top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. What is Marylou's top sales secret? If you had to start back in sales at the beginning of your career, what was the one thing that you would tell yourself? If you had to hire someone, write it down on a piece of paper. What was the one thing that you would give them? If you had to consult a startup to go from 1 million to 100 million like Salesforce.com, what is your top sales secret? So that's what the audience is dying to know. But before that, the second thing they're dying to know, who is Marylou Tyler? Where did you come from? Because you hit the scene with the book and I'm like, who's Aaron Ross and Marylou and what are they talking about? And but before that though, what is your background? How'd you get started in sales? What did your family do? Where have you worked? And then everywhere that you worked, you learn these micro secrets. Mm-hmm. You know, you have successes and failures and learning opportunities and these micro secrets that help you skill up and level up throughout your career. So we want to know everywhere that you worked, and then let's talk about some of those successes, failures, and micro secrets. But with that, the audience doesn't care about me. They care about you. Let's start with the background and your career.
Okay. It's going to surprise you, I'm sure. I am a trained computer scientist.
I saw that. Engineer.
Yeah, graduated with a degree in computer engineering from the University of California, Santa Barbara back in 1981. So it's been a while. And we were going through an accreditation at that time in computer science. So the folks like me who took that curriculum took a lot of engineering classes. So I was on the fence whether I wanted to be a double E, an electrical engineering major, or a computer science major. But I tended to like software more than hardware. So that's why I pushed over to that side. And I had dreams and aspirations of being a flight simulation coder, programmer is what I wanted to do. Wow. So I wanted to work for McDonnell Douglas in their aviation area and down in Seal Beach, actually, California. I actually got a job to do that. But then I found love and got married and ended up going to El Segundo and worked for Xerox Corporation in their data center.
What made you was it you just loved flying, or?
I just loved the algorithms that supported that type of real-time, just not transaction-based, but it was just real-time programming. So event-based. So cool. And, I've been enamored with event-based anything. That's why I love AI. I love deep learning. I love all that stuff.
Yeah. You and I both.
Yeah, because it's not necessarily, it's reactive in nature, but you got to have the algorithms to support the what if scenarios. And I loved doing that. I love coding that.
Oh my gosh, I love that too. I like I told you, we're writing 10 script books, and I literally with your work and the work of others, everything's a what if statement. Hands down, it's a game of chess. There's always a certain amount of moves that you can make. I don't think a lot of people can see that. Mm-hmm. And it's really cool that you've seen that, probably because of your engineering experience, your engineering background.
It's the love of math, and math and music also go together. So I was also an accomplished pianist. I was on track to go to Juilliard, the School of Music in New York, but I really gravitated towards software design.
A musician, aviation pilot. So you could fly a plane and play Mozart at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was my upbringing. That was where I started. But the common thread through that, obviously, or maybe not so obviously, is process, and the process of sales versus the process of math, or the process of functions and things, all aligned. Really aligned.
So you're a pianist, you studied aviation, and then you said you ended up it sounds like you ended up getting married and then moving or doing something else
Yeah, I moved to the El Segundo, Los Angeles area by the airport there. And Xerox was my second choice. And since my husband got a job at Mobil Oil in Torrance, it was a better synergy than me going through Seal Beach, because that was further south.
Yep.
And so I got started there and worked in the data center, and I was working on the operating system design. So I never was a user interface programmer, like what you see, the apps that you see and interact with. I was down underneath the covers, in the weeds, in the
on the back end?
Back end, yeah.
Yeah, I love back end.
Basically assembly coding. So that level of code,
And you said you love algorithms, so that makes sense to me.
Yes.
I love back end. It's funny. I'm a sales guy turned engineer, because I just love the algorithms, and sales is an algorithm. If you really break it down,
it's one big one. It really is. It's one big problem to solve. So what happened was, though, I got into that area, and very quickly I learned more about the project management side of these large projects I was involved in at Xerox. And I was always the point person to say, Marylou, go talk to these users to find out what the heck they want. And then then come back to us and write up your design specifications because you know how to code it. But we don't really like talking to these people a lot. So can you do that for us? So I was
funny.
Client-facing thing, whether it was in technical or not, for a number of years. So finally, I went into sales support from there. And I was the technical support person for the sales reps that were selling $1 million systems for Xerox, and loved that as well. And eventually was wooed away by these startup companies in Silicon Valley
that
who were
happens.
putting together these disruptive systems. Because remember, when I started, there was no PC, there was no Apple,
Crazy.
There was no Microsoft even. There were large
just IBM?
mainframes. IBM
mainframes.
The AS400, the PDP-11 by DEC. Those are Honeywell had some systems. Those are the big systems. So I got wooed away by a startup who was creating some data transaction processing software.
Okay.
So I needed to have a front-end background, so the actual communication software pieces, the bits and bytes of how you get data back and forth.
Yep.
And then couple that with, oh my gosh, we're moving from analog to digital now. So I got involved at that level, working
That's
on
insane.
systems.
And by the way, Xerox is an amazing company. They've got the world's best sales training platform.
Well,
right?
and I was able to go through the Xerox
because you went to the sales side, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
so
dude. That was like world renowned. I'm not saying it's not world renowned now, but like back then, that was like the MBA of sales.
Yes. Yep, I got training in that, and I also got training like on the McKinsey and Deloitte level of project management. So those are the days when the company really took good care of their people and put us through training that I'm sure I'm certified in a bunch of different things that I don't even know about because we had all of that training at Xerox.
Yeah, I love that you were able to like get a great education in engineering and then get the PM consultative approach plus the sales expertise. When you started getting trained in sales at Xerox, like were you freaked out? Was it like, oh, I don't like this. Like, I don't like communicating with people.
Completely. Someone asked me the other day, I was on a podcast, they asked me what one thing I was the least enamored about in my current job and what I do now. And I said, still the hardest thing for me is the people side, people interface, because my clients, my students even want my face on the screen. And I am so used to and feel more comfortable with screencasting, talking over myself.
Yep, programming behind the screen.
Myself. So
that's awesome.
That's been the hardest thing is an introverted person to try to be personable, and on. And I am very one-on-one really good, but even speaking, I have so many people ask me to speak in these large rooms. And I'm like, where did you figure that I would be good at this?
Where did you come up with the crazy idea to think that I would be awesome at this?
Right.
Yeah. And it's funny because like, if you read Predictable Prospecting, like, or Predictable Revenue, I would immediately think like, oh yeah, Marylou's like, you walk in the room and she's got the world of confidence and like she does this every second, but you're an introvert at heart. Like that's interesting.
But I've learned and practiced. And that's, when we get to my one thing, I've learned and practiced, created a consistent method, system, framework to get myself
I love it.
to habit.
So nerdy. I love it.
so that it is second nature for me. And I now love it and I crave it. But, I still need to retreat back to my programming cave. So I always have a project I'm working on that's programming specific where I can go in my little cave, have the pizza come in whenever I'm hungry.
Oh man.
and not talk to anybody for a few days.
I need to show you some of the algorithms we're working on because I think you would just have a blast.
Probably.
But okay, so let's talk about, what did you learn in the project management and UI UX side of development at Xerox, and then what did you learn, successes, failures of being on the sales support side of things there?
On the actual process side of project management, the Band-Aid, the foundation, everything is around process. So codifying processes, labeling things, understanding timelines, Gantt charts, all of that is so important. Even now today, when you guys are setting up your campaigns for selling, there is a process underneath that where you're codifying the content assets that you're using, the types of emails that you want to send, whether or not you're touching social, phone, email, direct mail. So all of those components are components of project management and components of process. So I learned then that what I learned in school is completely applicable to my work world. Completely. Totally. So embrace it, be thankful, and use it. I can honestly tell you, I've probably used everything I've learned in school in some capacity, except for maybe automaton theory.
Yeah. And I don't even know what is automaton theory?
Automaton theory is just the theory of algorithms themselves. And it's like woo-woo stuff that I'm like, I don't think I can apply this anywhere.
Yeah. I've written different 10-step algorithms, but I have no idea what automaton is.
Yeah.
I'm not even pronouncing it right, probably.
Automaton. Yes. And I still have fears to this day that I didn't pass that class and I really didn't get my diploma. And I wake up every once in a while in a cold sweat thinking, did I really graduate from college?
That's funny.
But that's another story. I digress. But yes.
That's awesome.
So that was one thing I learned.
And that was your background in engineering. I love that you took all the expertise from engineering, because people think I'm crazy when I talk about it's sales is like an algorithm, sales is like chess. They literally look at me like I'm nuts.
Yeah, because we like to think, especially as we're getting to close, that it's more art than science. And there's art to it, but science is still the backbone of everything that we do. But yes, we do finesse the conversation from an artistic point of view when it needs to happen. So I do get that. What I did incorrectly, what I didn't learn properly, was understanding the amount of zealousness of some of the reps to promise things that we knew we couldn't deliver. And that was a big, wide open, because I had, as a sales engineer, you've got to learn to just shut your mouth when you're in a meeting. But when I would hear some of the reps talk about what we could do with the products and services and things, knowing that we couldn't do that, it was so hard for me to bite my tongue.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because you're like, this is going to be I'm going to be on the line.
Right.
Oh,
so that was a really difficult road to travel, to finesse. Again, that's more people side of things, and finessing the conversation, just like whoa, wait a minute. Let's back it down a little bit. So that was really hard. And I had to practice not saying what I think, not being as direct.
Yep.
Yeah, because for my world, it is or it isn't. It's kind of black and white, whether we can do it or not. We can always phase something in, but to actually stand there straight face and say we can do this when we really can't was really hard for me to.
I'm like, oh man, I do that all day. Yeah. I'm like, I literally feel like Marylou is yelling at me, and she represents my engineering team right now, because I just got a call yesterday. I'm like, guys, fit it into the engineering sprint, get it on the roadmap, get it out there. Yeah. We could do this, right? They're like, yeah, Brandon, we could do that. That would take 6 months.
That's the key. We can do this, but let's understand the priorities of the company. And work it through that way, rather than dealing now with an unhappy client. Let's be upfront and set those expectations and finesse the other side of the conversation that gets them comfortable that they're partnering with us on this journey, and that we may not have everything today, but we're working towards that and sharing those plans with them. That was not really done a lot.
Yeah. just because you're dorking into this like I am, respectfully, right? I was just coaching them. I'm like, look, let's analyze all the interests and the hobbies and the likes and dislikes of the companies and of the people that you want to research, because Seamless finds their perfect contact info. And then you could read all of this social data, all the publicly available data, use sentiment analysis, positive or negative. Are they talking about it? Then you know what they're interested in. And then we automatically write the sentences. So we provide your total addressable market, the world's best sales leads. And then what if we use all this data on the company and the company to automatically write the sentences that people have to take time to personalize? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, we could get that done in 36 hours, right? They're like, no, that's going to take. They're like, you're crazy. Yeah. I'm like, man, come on, man, get back to work.
That was really something that I worked hard to understand, how to finesse that conversation, how to really sit down with my team and get on the same page. So that, there will be always some things we say that we don't really mean to say, but we say them anyway. But for the most part, that was a really hard lesson for me to learn, moving from engineering to sales.
Oh, I bet. And it sounds like you got like your sales MBA there. And then what did you do after Xerox?
Then I went to an actual think tank for Honeywell and developed more operating system design. And
you didn't want to stay in sales support or sales engineering?
I was ebbing and flowing. Even at Honeywell, I ended up becoming more of a liaison role and I was more comfortable with it. So that was a great transition. And I worked with probably the smartest people I've ever worked with were at Honeywell. And it was great to be in a room with them all. And there was a very few of us. So we were very close in everything. We drank on Thursdays and Fridays together and had margaritas together. And,
awesome.
It was a really wonderful experience for me, but then it was time to move on. So,
and what's a think, like when you say a think tank, so you were working on the operation system, the transaction processing, the software design, the CP6 operating system, I believe. And then what is a think tank, like for people that don't know listening?
Well, this one was putting together the next generation of computer, whatever that was. I mean, so in our case, we took a mainframe environment. When you walk in a room, the mainframe took up, 10 yards of space. And we were trying.
Just massive.
It was very massive and very noisy.
Unbelievable.
What we were trying to do is get those 10 boxes down to one box, and shrinking the footprint. I mean, that was the goal. And also we were enhancing the communications because RS-232 was the main algorithm that came out for talking back and forth. And then all of a sudden this thing called Ethernet started coming out. So we had to we went from that to packet switching, from that to Ethernet. So we continually were working towards that digital environment. And then this whole thing with telephony, one pair of twisted wire running telephony, 1 megabyte Ethernet and RS-232 connectors.
I love it.
It just caused us to wow, we've got to figure out what is this future going to look like with switching data through a network, i.e. the internet.
That's insane. And what were the micro secrets? And I know that wasn't a sales role, but micro secrets that you learned from Honeywell that you could share with the audience from that experience.
When you have a problem that comes in, fix it then. Don't put it on a list of 10 things to do that you need to come back to next week or the week after, because I heard you mention sprint and scrum. You want to be able to attack that thing now while it's top of mind. And if you don't, then you're going to be spending 20 to 50% more time of your precious time to try to remember, now, what was the problem and how should I fix it? But if you deal with it then and work on it then you're going to end up being ahead of the schedule.
That makes total sense. So you say like just in time, like bug fixing and product fixing versus waiting and putting it off.
And having a committee prioritize which problems are important.
Yeah.
We didn't have any of these bug systems, nothing like that.
They didn't have Jira back then or Pivotal Tracker. Yeah.
We had nothing. I mean, we used to access the mainframe through a CRT. We didn't have a personal computer. There were no personal computers. They didn't exist.
Dude, product development back then had to have been so hard and exhausting.
It was, but like anything, we had a system and we had a method that worked for us. So, I think like anything, the main thing I learned from that experience, the one thing was when you have something that you're working on, fix it now. And it comes in, fix it now. Make sure that you've got a good chunk of it thought through and done before you go on to the next one.
That's awesome. And then, so you learn a lot from the think tank, and then I believe, what was, you then decided to go into sales engineering at like David Systems and Kaufman Systems and IMA.
Yeah. So David Systems was the turning point for me to become a sales executive.
Whoa! No, Marylou, getting out from behind the computer and behind the code to go front face to face.
Yes.
I got to hear about this experience. You probably were you freaked out?
Well, the way it was done, but back then, that's the way it was done. Is I came
You have
into
to
the
fly
office.
there, right?
I came into the office one morning and I noticed it was not as busy as normal. And I then got a call from my boss saying, "Oh, good, I'm glad you're in the office. We have some news." And he said, we're selling disruptive technology. The reps we hired from Rome, which is a PBX company for analog, are great. They know how to sell, but they don't know how to sell disruptive products. So we fired them all, and now all the sales engineering people are now salespeople. So congratulations, Marylou. You're a sales rep.
Wow. I love that your CEO was like, hey, we need to do this, and we're doing it.
Yeah.
That's like really hard to do. And the fact that he did that is interesting. And the fact that he believed in you to be able to do that is really interesting too. I mean, that just speaks volumes to probably how he felt about you and your capabilities.
So I went home, driving home that day. Was the office was in Los Alamitos, and I lived, I can't remember where I lived, probably in LA. But I was driving home thinking, how am I going to do this? Or my life is over, I think was my first thought.
Did you call your husband like, I may need to leave this company, I'm freaking out? Or
no, I just drove home and thought about, all right, I've had this training at Xerox. I'm sure that I retained some of it, and I have a process background. So, maybe I can just chunk down the pipeline to figure out what I need to do when, what I need to say when, and with whom do I need to say it with. So I started working on the precursor to predictable revenue, really. And I was 28 at the time, and figured out how to do this. Now, my quota was $2 million at the time in working cities.
7 figures.
It was cities and our box at the time. The Bell operating companies were my targets.
Bell,
There were seven of them.
Wow.
So I went from a systems engineer type person to a large scale, multi-stakeholder, long timeline
enterprise.
cycle,
oh man,
sales.
That's tough. That's tough.
And thrived.
Just crushed it.
Who would have thought?
Why? Okay, let's talk about that. So you transition into sales, you transition into enterprise, multi-million-dollar sales, which I've got experience with.
Yeah.
What were, like, you thrived? What were the secrets or the things that you did to crush it doing that?
I built relationships with everybody in the company who knew the product really well, and I interviewed them as if I was trying to find out why. Why should I choose you? Why now? And so I learned from everyone who touched prospects and customers in the company, their reasons why, the questions I should ask, the questions I may frequently get, the objections that I'll probably get, the stakeholders I should talk to let me in the door at the top of funnel, who will let me in the door to do a presentation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I was able to map out the entire sales process by leveraging the people in the company, whether they're engineers, whether they're product managers, whether they're salespeople, whether they're even the executive assistants to the president who knew the reasons why. I made sure they knew me, and I made sure that I understood from them, why should I buy this product or service?
Wow. Was it really hard for you so mapping the account, not as difficult, but when you don't have a ton of sales training, it's hard to have the confidence to say, like, okay, well, who other than yourself are the decision makers, are the budget holders, are the influencers on this deal, and what do they typically say to you when you bring them something like this, whatever your solution was at the time selling? Like, how did you learn? Because, like, when you say that, yeah, it's easy to map out an account, but it's really difficult to, like, get everyone to tell you what you need to know to get the deal done. Did you just read a bunch of books? Did you just ask and you were just confident and you had no filter because you were just, like, approaching it like a software development project? Like, I don't know. That's really hard to do.
I did the middle one, seek to understand, because I was developing a system. And when you develop a system, you interview
requirements,
right.
Documentation, and
exactly.
everything.
I am building a detailed design documentation. And so because of that, I approached it consultatively because I'm naturally a consultant. I'm naturally trying to understand And I don't have an ego about it. I just want to know.
That's
What
awesome.
is it that you're looking for? What's the contrast to what you have now? So that's that whole obstacle and outcome. That's the compel with content framework in the second book. Is
Yep.
all about the way I questioned people to get to the result that they were looking for, when they wanted it installed or when they wanted to see the result, and what it would mean to them both financially, strategically, and even personally if they were to achieve this goal.
Yeah.
And that is the framework I use. And I studied Sandler. I studied Xerox again. I studied.
So you studied all these frameworks
every book
too.
on the planet. I'm like,
so you did what I did. Yeah. It was fun.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. It was fun. I mean, luckily my fiance at the time was going to law school.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was getting my MBA while reading 130 books at night, like my MBA at night while working full time at IBM Interactive and Google while reading 100 sales books. And
So we do that we're continual learners. I just bought Anthony Iannarino's book.
That's
Their
awesome.
Lunch.
I'm interviewing him later today.
It's such a great book. I mean, so one of the things too, learning along the way, a tip, a secret is continually educate yourself.
Continually educate.
Continually. And there's now all these apps like Blinkist and all these things.
I just got Blinkist. It's a really cool app, like the Cliff Notes.
The Cliff Notes version of all your favorite books. And then if you read something in there, you listen to something in there that's of interest, then you go get the book. Yeah. And that's what I do. So when I'm training or whatever, when I'm working out, walking dogs, whatever it is, I will listen and then make a note. I always have something with me to either type into or copy down. And then you go off and study. And that's a part of your workflow, which is another tip we'll do later on.
Awesome. Perfect.
Is, the way to do it that way.
Yeah, I love that. And a secret that I feel like we didn't call out as a micro secret was just ask the question.
Yeah.
You were putting together requirements documentation on the DMs, the users, the influencers, mapping out the enterprise account. And it feels like 95% of salespeople, and I've been one of them, I'm scared to ask the difficult questions. Like if you have a question on your mind, be like Marylou and just like you're filling out a requirements documentation, you're doing sales discovery, whatever question you're scared to ask them, just ask it because they will just tell you. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you asked a lot of people at the account while you were building those relationships to get all the answers you needed.
I did. And I also kept track because, again, I kept track of the questions I was asking. I put them in a workbook. And I basically had
That's awesome.
Getting into the first meeting questions, building rapport questions, sense of urgency questions.
Oh my gosh. I really hope engineers don't listen to this because now we're going to have all these engineers that go into sales and then they're going to kick my ass, guys like me. They're going to just destroy me because oh man, they're going to write all these algorithms and figure all this stuff out. So every step of the sales cycle, another secret, you knew the questions that you needed to ask at each stage of the funnel to move the deal, not to move the deal forward, but just to identify what was needed next.
Well, and what was meaningful. And when it was meaningful, then I counted that as a win. So if I was trying to count my yeses and nos, every time I was able to move forward to that next mile marker on the freeway, if you will, with the pipeline being the freeway, and not spinning my wheels, going around circles, then I counted that as a win, a meaningful conversation, which is also a part of the frameworks that we have with predictable revenue. And
positive conversation, a connect. Yep. How did you, when you were writing out these questions, just because I did the same thing, I've got like a book of hundreds of questions, but I never ended up taking it the full route of like scoring them. And how did you prioritize the best questions to ask at the stage of each funnel to really understand where that opportunity is at and what you need to do next?
Well, with the frameworks, it's each stage has one metric that allows you to go intra or inter-stage from stage to stage. But there are also intra-stage, within stage metrics that allow you to advance within the stage. You can't leave the stage yet, but you've learned more information. So each of those is codified. Each of those has some type of result we're looking for. It has some type of question, pain, chain, whatever you want to call it, question tree associated with what you need to do to get from that relative position to the next mile marker. And I started, essentially my questions are all coded. They have numbers, and then
they're all coded. I love this.
When I use them, there's a frequency usage, right?
Gosh.
And I have it by stakeholder, so I kind of know the flow of the tree to go. I see one of my stakeholders is the director of sales. So I would know which questions to ask him in what order based on prior analytics that I've tracked. And the fact that I keep everything in a database, I am able to have it map out for me. For this guy, with this particular type of company, with this many reps, these are usually the questions that you would ask in this order to get them to that next stage.
So smart. I mean, so you created literally like a program, like a SQL database program?
I have everything in, yes, as a matter of fact.
Oh my gosh.
It's in a database.
I so wanna fly out and just hang out with you for a month because like this shit geeks me out. I don't get to meet a lot of engineers that love analyzing sales. Mm-hmm. So like, it's just so geeky.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. Okay. And when it comes, sorry, my video guy just joined. When it comes,
Mason.
Hey Mason, what's going on, dude? I don't know why he's on this. Let me remove him real quick.
Okay.
When it comes to, or that could be Phil, my audio guy. So you dissect the enterprise sales, you nail it. You're great at the analysis of the deal, the discovery of the opportunities at each stage of the funnel. You create a program to master that. That sounds like another secret, the importance of discovery with everyone to really map out everything in the deal. What was next then? So you mastered and you crushed and you did great at the enterprise deal. Mm-hmm. At this company where your CEO just randomly is like, hey, you've got a $2 million quota now. You're going from programming to sales engineering. What was next after that?
Then I started up the startup trail. I kept getting wooed to go to startup after startup after startup.
Okay.
And I ended up at Kaufman Systems, was I think the last startup that I actually worked at. And I started specializing. I became very much on the telephony side of things. And I loved the ability to use.
I love telephony, man. I'm always on so many mobile. Love it.
So I love the ability to utilize a new technology at the time called Predictive Dialing. And that was a way for us to go through a list. And I always worked in outbound and outreach. We called it out. I hate to say outreach now because our company is called outreach, but we call it outreach. And I would work in with large call centers. So that's where Bose and Mastercard,
Apple, all these big companies. Yeah.
They all had really big call centers where they were doing outbound dialing. And I was working with the predictive dialing systems, and I just loved the way they worked because you had to file everything. When you talk to someone,
document everything.
You had to wrap up that call. You had to give it a disposition. You had to tell what the main value theme was that you were talking about and the pain that you discovered. And then it would file it in the right queue for the next time it would come around. So that was the beginning of predictable revenue because it was definitely a way for us, telephony-based, no email at the time, telephony-based with some direct mail sprinkled in of how to move prospects towards close one.
Wow.
And so that was a huge learning ground for me because I became a master in direct mail, which everything is coded. Every little piece of everything is coded there. And that's what I took.
What do you mean? What do you mean everything's coded there?
The envelope that you use has a code. The headline that you use has a code. The piece itself has a code. Because we want to be able to maximize the return on effort, right? We're spending hard dollars mailing thousands of pieces of mail. So how
much did it cost to send one thing out? $5, $2,
Gosh,
$1?
It was, I can't remember. It was expensive.
It's expensive though. Even today it's expensive. I looked into it. It's crazy expensive.
It's crazy. So we had package codes for everything so that we knew the package we were sending out, if it was in talk track number 2 for the predictive dialer, so like the equivalent of email number 2 now, we would know what content assets converted faster with this stakeholder. So you could tell this is the beginning of all of what we're doing now
This
with
is the beginning of the future.
Things. Yeah. And I was there at the beginning.
That's so cool. I love that you were in predictive dialing at 1989 to 1992. It's like, what? Like InsideSales.com got huge like over the past 5 to 10 years. And like you were in predictive dialing.
There were huge systems for data collection places. All those people ran outbound dialers. Everybody did. And legislation became very tough because it was one of those industries that abused the telephone.
Yep.
So, but I was there when all that was going on. I ended up running my own call center.
Oh yeah, and the call centers. So to maximize call center success, just some secrets, like because we do this now, us and then thousands of sales companies. So, is it like after every call, after every interaction, log that that sequence, that activity, and then the output of that activity and the sentiment? Like, in your best recommendation, how do we create as sales teams, as marketers and entrepreneurs, the world's best sales performance call center outbound program? Like from your experience in the call center space.
Well, it's just same as now. You need to have the list. You need to understand your segmentation. I mean, Aaron talks about that in his new book about segmentation and the importance of that. We live and die by the list in the call center. So that thing has to be...
Sounds like I'm in the right business then.
Yeah, it has to be as pristine as possible.
That's awesome.
You have to mind list fatigue. So there are formulas for that. I use that currently with my clients. Every time I talk about list fatigue, they'll look at me like I'm crazy, but we use that all the time.
There's definitely list fatigue. People turn over. Like I have the data on the world's professionals. Like I know them all and I've got their contact info. People are churning and changing every 35 to 38% of the time.
Right.
Month over month.
You have that, and you have, what actually went through the sales funnel as a conversation. So you're losing records there as well, positively losing them, but they're no longer part of your pool. So that's the first thing of the outbound call center is understand the waterfall of what it takes to get from list to conversations to meaningful conversations. From there to get to the are we a fit sequence, to the disqualifying calls, and then finally to the opportunity and through close one. You need to know that waterfall because you need to circle around with the list so that you can feed these agents or these people who are doing that top part with enough records so that your consistency of forecast is the result. Yeah.
And it's a sales funnel. It's a marketing funnel. All these things when Marylou talks about the waterfall, hey, it's leads or contacts, and then it's outreach, and then it's like what the connection that you preach about in predictable revenue and predictable prospecting, and then was it a meeting and all of that jazz. That's awesome.
Right, and then above the list, which a lot of people still don't do, is what's the total addressable market?
TAM.
Yep. What's the total serviceable market? Yep. And then from there, that's what your list is built off of. So there's more areas of segmentation before we even get a list that I walk my folks through to understand, because we want product share or we want market share, or maybe we want combinations of both. Each of those 4 segments that are in that product share, market share, existing and new clients have different waterfalls. And then when you go from that thing to, am I doing an inbound program, an outbound program, a referral program? Those things have different waterfalls as well.
Unbelievable. I absolutely love it. And I completely get it. Like we built a product called TAM, Total Addressable Market, and instantly acquire your TAM. And like, it's so critical. One of the biggest challenges that we have and that all of our customers have, 20,000 SaaS companies, manufacturing company, financial service companies, and the people tuning in, over 100,000 on the newsletters and stuff. How do you say list is the most important, right? Mm-hmm. How do you define who on the list you should go after first? Because let's just say you sell Salesforce or SEAMLESS.AI, right? You sell to salespeople, B2B salespeople. Okay, well, there's 142 industries that LinkedIn, categorize codes. Right. I know all the codes for all 142. And for me, I've identified, 40 ideal industries, like my service addressable market.
Right.
How do I drill down to the one industry with the one employee size, with the one title persona that we should go after to make the most amount of revenue? How do you define that? How do you figure that out?
You figure it out a lot by trial and error, but you also make sure that you're working through that SWOT 6, which is chapter 1 of the Predictable Prospecting, because that's going to get you a better understanding of where you fit in the market. And it's based on some marketing principles and plus the regular old SWOT that we all know and love.
Yeah. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, just in case the audience doesn't know what that means.
And then from there, we look at product placement, we look at heuristics, we look at our employees, we look at a lot of different things to come up with what we think is a good profile for an account.
Okay.
And that feeds into the account profile. Once we get into the account profiles, there's a lot written about account profiles, but firmographic, socioeconomic, operational, there's other parameters in the account that will also guide you as to what people you want to talk to and what accounts you want to talk to. I'm working with a client right now who wants to capture market share. They have 3 different verticals or market segments that make sense for them, but there's also 3 different sales cycles associated with that. So they don't have a choice to say, I could pick one. They got to pick 3 because some are short, medium, and long cycles. Mm-hmm. So within that, though, they're able to now balance the forecast so that their revenue is consistent because the longer ones take longer, but they'll eventually come in and they're not necessarily more money, they just take longer, but they want to capture that market share. So you can see that total addressable market, total serviceable market, doing the SWOT, from there doing your account profiles, and then finally the persona profiles. Those 5 areas are what you need to work through first to come up with your best guess of what's going to be who you go after.
That's
and then
awesome.
Because we have technology now, we can seed our actual campaigns with different A/B split tests. There's just a lot of cool stuff you can do now.
It's amazing.
Get at a statistically relevant sampling so you can say, oh, that was stupid, or wow, we hit the jackpot. You don't have to do millions of records to get there anymore. You know, there's the T distribution that you can use, which is at the low end, 96 records, at the high end, 384 for a pretty good 95% confidence rate. That's all you really need.
Really? I was just about to ask you how many contacts to figure out, like if you're using a new script, email script, call script, social script, pitch script, how many people do you need to get that in front of to have a statistical significance in your opinion?
Well, you need to think about the constructs you want to track. So if I wanted to track opens, I need 384 opens, which means if my open rate is 30%, I need 384 times 30% in order to start with the number of records that I need.
And when'd you come up with 384? Like, why that number?
That is the T distribution, the mathematical
Got it.
probability of error. There's 2, T distribution and Z distribution that we use.
Okay. That's amazing. No, like I totally follow. Like salespeople don't get that education. I never knew what that was.
Yeah.
384. So if we know that we wrote a new email script, salespeople, everyone listening here, and we want to test, like, is it good, is it bad? And we're A/B testing. That means we would need, we've got 2 templates. Let's just round it up to 400, right? Yep. And then you said 30%. So we would probably need
Assume 30% open rate.
Yeah. It's a good assumption, which we see. So you've got 30%. You're going to need at least like 1,200 to 1,500 per template.
Yeah.
So about 3,000 records.
Yeah.
And
for that.
Does the 384, like, do you have to hit the 384 opens to know, like, okay, statistically for both templates, like,
if you want a 95% confidence rate, if you decide 90%,
I never knew this. I've been in sales. I've been in sales since I was 18. I never knew like there was a number to hit significant confidence.
This is direct mail. That's because you're too young. This is all direct mail stuff.
This is crazy.
But so for 90% confidence rate, we're looking at, I think it was 192. So you go down significantly. It might even be 96. I'll have to get my graph out and send it to you. But you go down significantly if you're willing to give up plus or minus 5%.
Got it.
of
And what do you
confidence.
think people should aim for? Do you think that we should aim for 95% confidence? Well, it just depends on how well you want to perform, right?
Yeah, like anything, direct mail, yes, because it's costing us lots of money to get the mail out. So we want to be as statistically relevant as possible. Email,
Yeah. Email.
90% is good.
Okay.
In my classes, when I teach, we do 30 because that's the Z distribution, and 30, which is a wider gap of error, but it's around 90% confidence ish. So, you pick your poison. How wide do you want that spread of something that's not predictable?
Okay.
And
Got
go
it.
from there.
So 95%, 384. If you're at a 30% open rate, which is the average right now,
Yeah.
you need at least 1,500, 1,200 records
To get
per
started.
template to build the statistical confidence that you need. And Bethany, just because we've got some live streaming, Bethany asked a question here, Marylou, that said, when you're selling SaaS to enterprise, just because you're an expert at targeting, right, and building your TAM and breaking it down and breaking it into accounts, do you focus on, let's just say they've never used your SaaS software before and it's a freemium software. Do you focus on selling bottom up, down, all the above, from cold to account closed won? And Bethany from Chicago, Illinois, great question. Let's hear it from the expert.
I personally, because I've been doing this for a long time, start top and work my way down because I know with confidence that I can have that strategic conversation. If you're not confident of having that strategic conversation, which is usually return on investment, return on effort, industry standard, this, that, these, and those, fear of missing out because you're not going to be, your company revenue is going to suffer. If you can have those conversations with the C-suite, those are the conversations that they want. They want to know, how is this affecting my revenue? And how can I make my people more productive? And how can I make sure that my products are premium for my customers? So that's top. If you're not quite sure, you want to hang around on product and service levels, talking about the pros and cons of product, now you're going outside the bullseye. You're going outside the decision maker center bullseye to either direct influencer or indirect influencer. So I would start at the top. If you have no clue as to what role is doing what, which still happens today, even though we have all of our great stuff to figure out who's who. I just did a project with Gartner a couple of years ago where they had 30 marketing titles that they wanted personas for. How the heck are you going to know which of those 30 is the best fit for your product, right?
Yeah, we work with Gartner and it's like, it's crazy that stuff that they do.
Yeah. So for those,
exhausting.
I would go direct influencer, indirect influencer, and I would map around that way to find and build the business case that I eventually will present to the decision maker. And that's how I would do it. When I start out with folks
that makes a lot of sense.
New to sales, we start at the outer ring because as we wrote in Predictable Revenue, those mapping calls are friendly. You pretty much have an 85% success rate of learning something new, which counts on your board as a meaningful conversation that you've had today.
Yep.
And so you work your way into the more strategic conversations. And that's the way I would look at it. If you have that business knowledge and know-how, strategic conversations, which require you challenging the C-suite, then by all means, top down.
I love that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the bottom up is going to take a long time too. Like if you start top down, it's accelerated quite a bit because you're already having the strategic conversations.
And when you get stuck, Bethany, if you feel like this is stalling, it's typically because the middle management, the direct and indirect influencers are holding you back. And that extends the lag. That could also make things leak out, or it can get gunk in the pipeline, which we don't want. You get stuck in this maybe land. We want a yes or a no, a go or a no-go. That's our world. We want outcomes. And we're willing to take the no. We are looking for the no in some cases because that helps us get to more of the yeses. And that is the attitude. Now, I'm talking about a hunter or business developer, which is the area of the pipeline that I specialize in.
Yep.
It's that whole kind of love them and leave them approach. We're dating, constantly dating mode.
Yep.
And that you want to get a resolution or an outcome from the prospect.
That's amazing. Wow. So, Bethany, you've got the answer. You know what to do now. Thank you for answering that. And if you have any other questions, feel free to write in or post, and I'll be happy to comment or get that over to Marylou, and she can comment as well.
Yeah, sure.
And okay, you did the call center and you crushed it because you used data to basically record, log, and then optimize A/B tests. It sounds like you optimized everything, even looking at statistical confidence, 384. 95% confidence. Like I never even knew that was a thing. That's amazing. And then you did your own call center, it sounds like. Yep. What was that called? Was that IMA?
It was called Practical Sales Solutions. And we did appointments for the healthcare industry. So it was a business to consumer operation, really. But our clients were the healthcare companies like HealthNet and Prudential and all those big companies that had Medicare.
Okay. And so I'm getting lost in your career here. So you did the call center, you did your own call center. How did that go?
It went great. I mean, we loved it and sold it off and retired when I was in my 40s. And
hold on, what?
Life was good.
Hold on, what? Well, okay. I got to take a step back because I was like, I see the member research thing. Now I got it right. So you're running this call. I'm so excited about this. So you're running the call center. You then decide you want to do your own thing. Like,
right.
Did you have people in your network that you knew like, hey guys, you got in a room and it's like, you think of like the Facebook movie where you got Zuckerberg and Eduardo and the two guys and you're like, hey, like writing algorithms on the window. Did you bring a bunch of people in and start writing algorithms on a window? Like, how did you start your own call center company?
I was working for a company called FHP as a consultant doing lead gen, because I had now taken my process and perfected it and was a consultant. Of
course you did. Right. Of course. You probably wrote an algorithm to do that.
So I worked, one of my clients was FHP. I don't know what they stand for anymore, but they're no longer around. There was a couple of people that I worked for, the director of marketing and the director of sales, who were very, very smart people. And they decided, we're going to go off and do this ourselves because we've perfected it here and we've made all of our numbers and our management team is getting nice, fat and happy and rich. So we're going to take and do this on our own. Are you game? Will you come in and do what you did here for us? And I said, sure. And they said, and we'll make you a partner. And I said, okay, not really thinking about what that meant, but that's how it started. They brought me in to do all the technical stuff, get all the systems in place, get all the scripting.
Man, they hit the jackpot bringing you into that deal.
And they had the connections to the industry to get people to go with us. We did an at-risk solution. We charged $60 an appointment, and it was wild.
So you were doing outbound appointment setting. Mm-hmm. So I can't wait to get into these statistics. So let me guess, for what types of companies?
Healthcare. So Medicare, It's before Medicare was regulated. Okay. And we would be setting appointments for the reps to go out for group meetings or to get people to join their Medicare programs.
Wow.
Before open enrollment existed, there was no such thing as
there's no such thing. Yes. No. So if you got them to join this network or whatever, would they pay you like an affiliate fee of like a few $100? And
they paid us per appointment. All we had to do is generate the appointment, get the caller to say, yes, I agree to an appointment. And then I wrote a back-end lead generation system, complete like pre-Salesforce kind of system that routed the leads to the right spot through we had email at the time, I think. So routed the emails, created all the reporting, spit out the dashboards. I had done a scorecard for all of our agents. We had 250 of them. So I wrote the whole back end and then all the delivery systems to actually send these things out all over the US.
How long did that take you to develop? Curious.
It took a couple of years.
Yeah, I bet. You basically built Salesforce.com before it existed on the front end. For your own
we called
company.
it a direct response information system. We called it DRIS. And
DRIS,
I built
DRIS. DRIS, yeah.
Direct Response Information System. And it was a client server application I built using SQL. And
Yep. Yeah, and then it sounds like you automated it with the email sending, with all the workflows. The reps wouldn't be able to leave until they check marked and filled in all the data and did all the drop downs to create all the automation flows.
Yeah, basically the dialer doesn't start again until you disposition. So if they had a goal of X number of calls and they didn't wrap up, it was just sitting there, the dialer would red flag in my console that they were stuck in wrap up. So
Hey, Bobby, get back to work. Disposition that call and get back to work. You're costing me $60 an appointment. How did you score the reps? Like, how do you score your reps like that in that specific experience? How were you scoring them?
There's an activity workflow. So they have to have so many touches, just like we do now. Of those, they have to have so many conversations that are what we call
meaningful.
the intro conversation, and then go into that qualification call from there. And we tracked whether they had to call back. So was it a 1-call close or was it a 2-call? And then we looked at the response of the meeting. So when the rep got the appointment, what's the conversion rate? So like the SQL, sales qualified lead, to a SAL, sales accepted lead, we had that ratio going, and our goal was our MBO, the management by objective, was to get 90% of what we sent over accepted.
Wow. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. That's amazing. And then the biggest secret to that, right? Because appointment setting for clients is really hard.
It is hard.
There's Aaron Ross's company does this now. Mm-hmm. There's hundreds of appointment setting firms out there. BPO, by appointments only, is one of the largest.
Right.
There's others. Jason, shout out to you. I know you work for one. I forget the name though. Sorry. There's a lot of them. So what was the biggest sales success secret and failure learning opportunity doing your own appointment setting company? Because that's hard.
Right. The biggest lesson was what I teach today is to mechanize what can be mechanized and be human in the rest of it. Don't try to, we never did, for example, the automated voice coming up to say hello. Everything transferred to a human where it made sense, because our audience was such that they were older people and they wanted human to human. So what we did was we programmed to be, as much as we could, we mechanized the repeatable tasks, but we also knew that balance between being human and being automated.
Okay.
And took advantage of that. So the other thing is that I built this whole call set algorithm that our lists never were burned. We always had fresh names coming in, and we knew the ratio to do that. And that allowed us to continually add more appointments, which allowed us to keep our customers longer because we didn't exhaust the list. So they stayed with us. The long-term value of the clients were longer because we spent a lot of knowledge and know-how in what we called call sets at the time, which were the list fatigue pieces.
So the leads are critical to booking appointments, the keeping constantly filling the funnel with all of your leads, constantly filling your funnel with your TAM, every month having your TAM and the sales leads and the opportunities in your funnel, absolutely critical to maximizing appointments set by sales teams and marketers globally.
With quality. So we weren't one of the biggest things people hate about predictable revenue, or I don't know why we got this attached to us, but it's that whole mass email thing of just spray pray, whatever they call it.
Yep.
That is not the intent of that book. If you look at that book, go to pages 99 through 101, it's talking about a 315 process, which is account-based selling in a nutshell. It's not transaction. It's not, spray pray. So I don't know how you guys got that.
No, and it's funny because I do think of that. I think it was just because, and I didn't think of that right when the book came out and for years, but then looking back and rereading it again, I'm like, shit, this is just spray and pray. But it's not, but I think it's because you just say okay, build a list of 500 to 1,000 people and then blast them. That's why when you said the 315, what is that? What is it? What do you mean there?
The 315 is a process in predictable revenue that consisted of a 15-minute AWAF call, are we a fit? followed by a 1-hour scoping call, which is to meet with the point people from the prospect's company to help determine, is this something of value that you want to pursue? That was followed by a 2-hour call where we introduced our folks, they introduced their folks, and we started hammering out, should we work together or not? That took 3 hours and 15 minutes then to get from that initial conversation to a qualified opportunity. And that is the waterfall for predictable revenue. It was never 15-minute conversation, set a meeting, hand it off to the AE. There's nothing in that book that says that. Nothing.
Yeah. Wow. That's so good. I love that. So, okay, you use that approach. You mechanized it, you said. What was the others? There were a few there. I know we went off in a
we
few.
We did the initial meeting. So they had that intro meeting.
Yeah, the intro.
And then
call.
If they could get right into the qualification call. Or they could say, well, when your husband comes home, let's schedule a time and do a call together, all three of us. So that we were looking to see, was this a 1 call or a 2 call or longer? And we tracked all of that. And we then knew at the end of the day, relative position of where a prospect was in the pipeline, because those were different stages for us. Just like with predictable revenue, we had a working stage, which is where we were trying to accomplish the AWAF call. Once we got the AWAF call done, we went to a qualifying stage. And that's where we did that scoping or qualification call. The same way we do today with my people. That's how I set them up.
That's amazing. That makes a lot of sense. So then you were so successful, you and your partners were so successful that you built this up and then you sold it.
Sold it, and my partners to this day are still retired. Wow. Golfing or playing tennis or whatever they're doing.
Who did you sell it to?
We can't disclose who the company was, but it was a healthcare company who took it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They brought it in-house, and then I was a consultant with them for years working on the system. Because I wrote it, so they wanted me to manage it.
You had to, they couldn't lose you. Probably the agreement, like if I was buying it, I would be like, Marylou's, she's got to be.
Yeah, so I was started with a 3-year contract, and then I think I ended up working almost 10 years with them before I said, okay, I'm done. I'm done.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then is that when you launched Telegenic?
Telegenic was in the midst of all of that. So Telegenic was the company that I worked with at FHP. So it was a consulting firm even way back when. But the tele part of Telegenic was like photogenic. It was supposed to be, we're telephone specific. And we did telephone and direct mail. And that company really was around early on. I think I was 30 when I started that company.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, you started these companies super young. Was it hard, like becoming an entrepreneur at a young age, like at a younger age, or no?
Not at all.
You were just like ready to go.
I was always, because I was the only girl in my graduating class of 12. There was only 12 of us that graduated. And I was always the youngest. And I am Puerto Rican. So I've always had not adversity, but challenges to prove that I was viable. Yep. So this was no different. This was just another avenue I chose to go down. I never saw it as a something to hold me back. I saw it as an opportunity. And I am very creative. I have a very short attention span as far as I want to create something new.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not a company. I would die if you made me work for a company that you have to go into the office from 9 to 5. Because when I retired, I thought, great, I'm going to learn how to do ballet because I'd never done that. And I'm going to learn how to do nutrition because I was training for triathlon. I could never make it to class on time. So I got a D in nutrition and F in ballet. So it's like, okay, awesome. Well, maybe the 9 to 5 thing is not for me. Yeah. But so I decided early on to become an entrepreneur, and I have been on my own ever since then. Not on my own, but as a solo entrepreneur since I'm 60 now, so 30 years.
That's incredible. And you've had so much success. And I think it sounds like you just have to, for people that are struggling with like having that confidence in sales, do you have just a quick piece of advice before we cover Exos and some of these other places and the secrets that you got there? But what piece of advice do you have for people that want to improve their confidence? Because you're very talented, you're very intelligent, and you have this confidence. And even though you don't like being in front of people, you're great at being in front of people. But for the younger salespeople or even older, whatever it may be, if you're lacking that confidence, like what do you recommend for them?
You're always going to be 2 or 3 steps ahead of the other guy. So you have to look at it that way. Whether if you're young and you think, well, they know more than me, you know more than other people. So take that knowledge that you have and be very good about sharing it with others. That's going to build your confidence more. The more you help other people, the more you teach other people, the more confident you are going to be. 100%.
That is just literally like mic drop. That's some deep shit right there. And yeah, I agree. I just started doing this and it changed my life. Totally changed my life.
Yeah.
Less about like being confident, like I know what I'm doing, but more about like I don't care about being non-confident because I want to positively impact someone. So that passion to help someone overcomes my fear.
Right.
Which I think aligns with your secret right there that you just dropped. Like you're going to know more than other people and you've got something you know to help other people and just share it.
And the other thing is I have 2 things on my computer. I have number 1, how can I add more value today? And number 2 is who can I help today?
Wow. Why do you have those down?
Because some days I don't feel like helping people or I don't feel like doing anything.
Well like, yeah, and let's do it today. Like I literally worked till midnight last night. I've been on 18-hour benders for a month all week. It's Saturday and early Saturday morning. And by the way, like I'm on the East Coast. You're on the West Coast, right? Or no?
I'm in Iowa.
Iowa. Okay, awesome. Yeah. I love that. Midwest. We're both, I love that. That's amazing. I thought for sure you were still in Cali. But, you know, we're both up early doing this interview to help other people. Marylou could have either easily said, dude, because we just got hit with snow and I was freezing. And you could have easily been like, you know what? It's cold. I'm tired. I just want to watch TV and drink coffee. But instead, you're here trying to positively impact as many people as possible. And you, every day, you write down, what are those 2 things again?
How can I add more value?
Okay.
And who can I help today?
That is so deep. Like, I don't hear a lot of people that write that down and just have it in front of them 24/7. Where did you come up with morning.
That? Oh, probably some self-help person along the way.
Like
Brendon Burchard or
Tony Robbins or something, maybe.
Robbins, even Jay Abraham is a good friend of mine. He's a direct guru. There's just nuggets all over if you're open to listening to them and taking some of their advice that works for you. And that works for me because there have been some days I wake up and I really don't want to, but I feel I have a gift and I have longevity now. So I have years of experience that's all stuck up here. If I don't get it out.
I know. That's why we're doing this interview and it's like we gotta get it all out of you because like it's funny. Do you, like I have a fear of death, like which pushes me because I'm afraid I'm gonna die knowing all of these things that I don't share with people that could help them. I don't know why that's my thing. My mom died when I was like 22 and my fiance's mom died when she was 18. And then I just had to go to a funeral yesterday for a best friend. And like that continuously pushes me. I basically always think like the party's going to be over tomorrow. Maybe the party may be over tomorrow. So I have to go all out as hard as possible. Like why do you, it sounds like you feel like you've got all this knowledge and longevity. What motivates you to share that with people?
I see people struggling. I read the boards. I get lots of emails from people. And I've always been focused up market. So I've always had pretty large accounts. I mean, even now with the book Predictable Revenue, that was a Silicon Valley startup-y kind of book. And I'm working like Mastercard and Gartner, bigger groups. So I have bigger long-term clients that are larger. But what about the folks that are just starting out? What about the women who are coming up into sales who feel like they can't break through? Those are the people that I really feel that obligation, a very strong sense of obligation to be able to help. Oh, 100%.
I love that. And that's probably why you wrote the books, because like that helps you scale your knowledge, right?
Well, predictable prospecting, I definitely did not want to write, but because I was at a client site and the person who hired me came up to me after that book, after that session and said, what you just taught us does not exist in predictable revenue. You owe it to us to write another book. And I was like, oh.
Why didn't you want to write it?
Because it's all hard work, as you probably know.
It's exhausting.
To sit down and write
exhausting.
it. And, I don't consider myself a writer. I'm a programmer, but it turns out that I'm a great writer. And it also turns out that I have a lot to say.
Yeah,
So,
I think you're a badass writer.
so the combination of the two. So for the second book, I ended up dictating. I ended up having conversations 2 hours a week with my co-author, Jeremy Donovan, who is a writer and has a lot of good successes out there.
Yep.
And together we collaborated on that book. And that was a great way for me to write it because I could talk and I could
I agree.
the contents and get everything done.
I record everything now that I do because I'm realizing like everything I do 24/7 has to do with sales, and I'm going to record it and I'm going to share it because it can change someone's life. Why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah.
And not like the Kardashian, I don't think watching the Kardashians changes someone's life, but like if someone like Marylou is you're consulting the world's best sales teams every day of the week. There's so much content out there. I'm a big fan in dictation too. Like, do you use Dragon or did you create your own dictation software?
No, I do use Dragon.
Do you? I was going to say, dude, if you wrote your own, I'm going to freaking go to Iowa right now and just like, I'm like, I bet you she may have you probably got the Dragon API and then improved it. Because it wasn't good enough for you. Yeah, not yet. You're too busy. So,
Yes.
Okay, let's get back into sales secrets. So those were all great. You sold you were part of member research for a decade, sold it. Everyone could have retired. You could have retired, but you stayed in the game because of course they had to keep you on. And then you end up going into, I see VCMO on your background, hyper quality as a chief conversation starter.
That was the beginning of my entree into predictable revenue.
Okay. Yeah. Talk to us about those three careers.
So because of my direct mail background and because I had this new thing coming online called the internet that it was interesting.
That's right, because it just hit 2001, 2000.
Yeah, 1999-ish, the birth of my daughter, somewhere in there, it just started hitting. And so I decided, I should probably look at this and see if there's some of the stuff we could take from telephony and bring it over. At the same time, just so happens, someone hired me at Hyper Quality as a consultant. And his way he hired me was, Marylou, I want you to do for us what you did on the telephony thing for email. So, and I was like, okay, like what?
Right. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So I have a friend who used to tell me, they could tell you to do anything, Marylou, and you'll say yes because you know you can do it. And then you'll figure out how to do it. Well,
I love that. That's a secret. Hold on. That's a secret right there. So basically, how do you approach every problem as an opportunity to solve, and no matter what, you'll figure it out? Because that to me sounds like very Elon Musk-y. That to me sounds like very Jeff Bezos-y.
Well, it's the combination of feeling confident within your own self that there's probably something in my past that I've done that's similar in nature. And if I don't know, I have the ability, because I am a conversation starter, to reach out to people in the world, in the network, who look like they know what they're doing and start a conversation with them. And that's what happened with Aaron.
Okay. So, and just right before we go into that, so it sounds like when you don't know something in sales or in engineering or whatever you're doing for salespeople, like you're saying, reach out to someone. Do you also, do you read a lot, or do you just go straight to an expert and you try to call them or connect with them?
I search and research first to see if there's
content out there.
Any content, any benchmarks, any baselines, any studies, whatever it is I'm looking for. And then sometimes I read the detail of the study, and there may be some authors of the study, or there may be a webinar that's put on by certain people. I put them on my hit list of people to contact. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're the president of the United States. Yep. If they were on this paper, then I'm going to use that as the reason why I want to learn more and what I liked about the paper or the webinar or whatever. So there's a little flattery component in there, but there's also, I'm seeking to understand more. You're the expert. I want to go right to you. Yeah.
Yep. I love that. So how did that lead into Aaron? I'm just taking some pictures for social media while you're going. How did that
It led into Aaron by a webinar that he did with a guy whose book I read, Brian Carroll, called Lead Generation for the Complex Sale. I had read his book, and he was doing a webinar with somebody on this thing called cold email. And so it aligned with my client saying, well, you know how we did the cold calling? We want to do the email thing, Marylou. I'm like, okay, well, that sounds like it's a good fit. So
That's awesome.
I listened to the webinar. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy, whoever he is describing predictive dialing, but for the internet. So that was Aaron. And he was talking about his success at Salesforce at the time. He was like employee number 6 or something. So I reached out to him, to Brian, first of all, and said, who's this guy? And so he said, his name is Aaron Ross. Look him up here. So I found him and I reached out to Aaron and I said, you and I need to have a conversation. I have a client that's trying to do this. It sounds like you've done a lot of this already. What do you got? Can I hire you to help me? And he was very generous, very receptive. And one thing led to another, and the book.
Was he working at Salesforce at the time when you reached out?
He was no longer there. He had worked at, I think, a VC, but then was starting his own consulting company at the time. And he had another arm of his consulting called Unique Genius, which was all about building, like we were talking about before, the confidence and that self-awareness to go out and conquer whatever it is that you're trying to do.
I love that. I'm actually talking to Aaron tomorrow.
Good.
I'm interviewing him tomorrow. That's amazing. And because like I said, dude, you and Aaron have both changed my life and the lives of hundreds of thousands of salespeople. Like the whole industry, you guys have revolutionized an industry. And you made inside sales cool and badass again. Make America great again. You guys like made sales great again and invented this whole different perspective. In my opinion, inside sales and SDR is the same freaking thing. Enterprise sales and account-based selling, it's the same thing. But it is really cool that we put this stamp on it. It evolved and you put the stamp on with the SDRs and the AEs, but you made it more badass than just a rebrand.
Right.
I feel like it was just it was a badass rebrand, but then it was a whole new level of using engineering and data and psychology and strategy, which is really cool. So he was doing his own thing, the VC thing. You reach out. He says, I'm interested or I'm down to chat. And then did he work with you to consult that one client? And then you guys are like, we should write this book. What happened next?
What he did was he said, how about this? I have some work that I've already written, some stuff I've already done. Let's see what of that we can use. And why don't I consult with you and then you can consult with your client? Do it that way. So I would prepare. So I hired him as a client. And then each time we talked, I prepared a list of the things that I wanted to do and learn. And that started to become this almost like a table of contents thing.
Yep.
And so
outline.
An outline. So, and then he started pulling all this material that he had already written.
Yeah.
And I was like,
that's like me. I got a 1,000-page playbook right now that I'm going to turn into 10 books.
Right. This is a book that you got here. We just need to do a little tweaking here and there and throw a couple case studies in. And
so Aaron had all this chat.
He had all of it done. And so what happened was he was going to call it Build a Sales Machine. That's what he was going to call the book.
Oh, the sales machine.
Build a Sales Machine. Build a Sales Machine. So he had buildasalesmachine.com. And he had partnered with somebody else to do this thing. And just the course of me knowing him and working together, Predictable Revenue got put together. We decided that was a better name. then build a sales machine.
That was definitely your idea.
And
you knew the predictive dialers, dude. That was definitely your idea. I know it. I know that title was your idea. That's the difference between like Aaron and probably you. Like Aaron's like, build a sales machine. You're like, well, this is like predictable and like repeatable and scalable. So like, what about predictable revenue?
So he was just so wonderful to work with and gracious. And the next thing I knew, the book was there and we were working on this together, and it was a lot of fun to get started. But then I quickly realized that he is working in a different segment of the market that I'm comfortable in. So we've only worked together 5 months. The book was released in July of 2011, and we worked together until December. And then we went back off and did our own thing again. But the collaboration was good.
What do you mean? Why? What do you mean? Why didn't you guys just like pop up your own consultancy or merge and do a consultancy?
We started to do that. If you look at the old documentation, I was the CEO of Predictable Revenue.
Yeah, I remember that.
But fast forward from July to December, I started working with the clients that I like to work with. He was working with a lot of the startups.
Yeah.
And our styles didn't mesh at all, because I was trained, as I told you earlier, more Deloitte, McKinsey, Bain & Company.
Sale.
So I was very strategic in even my management of a project, and I needed timelines and Gantt charts and stuff. Yeah. And he would come in, equally brilliant results. He would come in and say, "So, what do we need to do today?" to a client, and I couldn't go there. I'm too structured for that.
That's so funny.
He's got that natural, wonderful combination of being an engineer as well, but totally creative and winging it, and gets to the same results, but he's okay with the slippery slope, standing on the ledge stuff, and I'm not.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it was a great experience. You guys just decided you had different styles.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a secret. What do you do when you're working on a team, sales team, let's say, and your partner, your AE, your SDR, your sales ops, your VP of sales, you guys just get along respectfully, but just don't have the same strategic direction. Because you and him handled it great. And just for advice, this is a micro secret. Like, what would you recommend to salespeople out there that are dealing with that?
Well, I think you got to decide how important that is. It was very important for me. And I don't know whose book it was, Jim Collins, maybe. Get the right people on the bus, good to great. And
I was just about to say good to great. Yeah.
It wasn't the right people. And I knew that. And so I immediately started transitioning myself out. It wasn't cold turkey. I'm quitting. I'm leaving. But I said, this doesn't look like it's going to fit. And be okay with that. We're not a good fit.
Yeah.
And I knew that. So that was a lesson to learn, to not allow yourself to get stuck in situations where if you could make a change, start planning for that and make sure you work with people who are the right people on the bus for you, because it's a big difference. When I had that company that we sold, we had such a great time. We had different strengths, no doubt, but when we came together in a crisis situation, it was together. And we knew how to solve it together. I didn't have that support. I didn't feel like that was going to be a good mix when I was working with Aaron before.
Yep. No, I totally get it. And it's interesting. The more that I grow as a leader, because I've never been this is my third company, but I've never built a $100 million company before, like we're doing right now. You love high performance. Like we're nowhere near that number. Like we're not even close to that number. And I'm like, you know how, like, because I'm like, you like do problem solve, like we're going to figure out how to do it. Right. I realize I feel, as I lead and I see people's strengths and weaknesses, I realize like what we need and how quickly, like it used to take me like years to like, if I didn't think someone was a fit, to make a move on it. And now I see that, oh my gosh, like we need this characteristic. They don't fit that. We got to make a change. Like I'm so fast now. I don't know why that changed. Probably because we're trying to get to 100 million in 12 months.
Or you just start recognizing that, the serenity to accept the things you cannot change. I mean, and I knew I would not be able to change, nor would I want to. I love him as a person, and it was great to work with him for the short time that I did, because it catapulted me in a direction I probably never would have gone. I would have stayed in large project management of putting in large call centers. But now I'm like off doing this other thing. And it's because I'm of him. I mean, he really helped define what I was good at, which was great. I mean, that's a gift that I got from him that I will cherish forever.
How would you define that?
I am an expert in sales process. I am the sales process guru for sure.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you at all. I'm pretty sure, yes, you are the sales process guru, 1,000%. And I would not get in a ring with Marylou at all to argue that, because she will create an AI bot that will kick your ass. She will have one of those Boston Dynamic robots come, and she will program that, and it will punch you in the face. Okay, so you part ways, you launch your own consultancy, and then your client forces you to write predictable prospecting. How to radically increase your B2B sales pipeline. Yes. And you worked with Jeremy Donovan, who was the author of the How to Deliver a TED Talk. Oh, dude, I'm doing a TED Talk. I got to talk to him. I literally posted on LinkedIn. I don't know what I'm doing for it. By the way, I have not been selected by TEDx to talk at all. I threw it out in the universe on LinkedIn yesterday. So this Jeremy guy, how did you connect with him?
He hired me to come and work at his company and do that immersion thing I was telling you about. And he's the one who said, Marylou, I have predictable revenue right here. What you just taught us is a superset of that thing. So whatever it was, you got to get it out to people so they understand the difference between the two books. And that's when I said, fine, if you'll do it with me, then, and that's what happened.
That's awesome.
And that's how that worked out. And what was beautiful about that relationship, which I had no idea, he already had the connections into McGraw-Hill.
Oh, cool.
A publisher.
Yeah.
So it immediately got accepted for publishing.
They're right here in my backyard too. They got a big headquarters here in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah. Yeah. The books are actually built.
And the predictable prospecting, guys, just so you're aware, because I've read both these books and I love both of them equally. They're different.
Very different.
If you read Predictable Revenue, predictable prospecting covers a lot of things that you're going to miss out on, like identify the prospects with the greatest potential, which I just brought up earlier in the call. You got to clearly articulate your company's competitive position. Marylou talks about implementing an account-based sales development approach, refining your lead targeting strategy with ICP, starting a conversation with people you don't know, landing meetings through targeted campaigns, crafting personalized emails, defining sales dev performance metrics. What else is in that book that I didn't cover there?
The Compel with Content framework, which is the actual writing framework for emails, for if you want to do a social connect through LinkedIn or setting up your scripts. It's the story arc of an email. It's not really talked about a lot, but because of my direct mail background and persuasive copywriting background, I brought those skills into this book. Because we all get emails that we look at them and say, what in the world are they writing?
It's terrible.
It's very terrible. So our motto, teaching point here is do not hit send on your email unless you know that email is going to enhance their workday, change and transform their workday, or otherwise entertain them to the point where they're like, I would love to get to know this person better. If you can't do any of those three,
and you said those three, send. So change their workday, enhance their workday, or entertain.
Make it so delightful that they want to learn more from you. It really should end the email with, how do they do that? Boy, I'd love to know more. Or what a pleasant person, you brightened up my day.
That's amazing. I love that. I'm sorry. So those three things again. We're going over so much content. So entertain was the last one.
Entertain was the last one.
For the better was the second one. What was the first one again? Educate?
And educate them on something that they don't know. So, you're radically transforming them, and they may not all, even though we are brainwashed now to hear that the buyer knows what they're looking for. That's so not the case now. My daughter was trying to find a camera, and there are thousands and thousands of websites devoted to all about your camera. And she was craving, I just wish someone would call me and tell me the differences between all these things.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
It's exhausting. So we do still have a place out there And our job is to educate them to the point where they are confident in making a decision. So these emails should have that ring to it.
I love that.
It shouldn't be, hi, just checking in.
Oh gosh.
Put a circle and a red.
So stupid. You have the data and the algorithms that tell you that's a dumb move because it doesn't do one of the three things: educate the work, change the work for the better, or entertain. Because entertain, like some people like that. Like you need to be entertained sometimes, especially if you're doing long, monotonous work, the personas. I love the book, like Predictable Prospecting filled in the gaps for me personally that predictable revenue was missing. So I'm so glad that you wrote that. I'm glad Jeremy Donovan forced you to write it. I'm going to try to get you I'm going to try to hire Jeremy to coach me on my TEDx that I have not been selected for, that I will do in the future in parallel to building $100 million company.
There you go.
So we've covered the whole career, right? And now you're consulting you've consulted over your career, hundreds and thousands of companies to maximize their sales process, to maximize revenue, maximize sales. And it's incredible, your story, your experience. I agree with you. And I understand why you're so motivated, because I'm in like my early 30s. I can only imagine where you're at. Like, I personally want to help you get all of these secrets out there. I totally get your motivation. Those two things that you write down again, how do I help people?
Who can I help here, and how can I add more value today?
Here can I help, and how can I add more value? I love that. So you've coached and trained and worked with the best companies to become the best. Good to great by choice, you name it. Jim Collins, you mentioned him. Let's get into, you've learned so many secrets and you've shared a ton of micro secrets here. This is going to be tough, and I'm going to be really interested to hear this. Like I'm so glad we've got a few minutes quickly because I've got another interview at noon. But sales secrets from the top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Marylou Tyler.
Yes.
You are this sales process guru. You are the predictable, repeatable, scalable revenue sales machine expert. Predictable prospecting author, predictable revenue author. What is your top sales secret?
Ooh, my top sales secret is focus on habit.
Okay.
And what I want you to do is there is a continuum of habit that people don't necessarily recognize, but if you do anything of any of these books, the biggest lesson in here is the day in the life, what you do on a daily basis. And the day in the life is all predicated on having good habit. Now, habit starts with desire. We all desire to do something. You want to build a $100 million company.
Will build 100. Will speak
you have
on
a
TEDx.
Strong desire.
Yes. No, I'm just kidding. Keep going.
But to do that, to go to habit, you start with desire. The next step is repeatable. Are you doing these things every single day, repetition, to get to your goal? Then from there, you move to discipline. How disciplined are you to do those things that are relevant and necessary in a repeatable fashion every day to get to your goal?
I love that.
Once you go past discipline, now you're in routine. What are you doing routinely to build that $100 million company? What are you doing routinely to get in the door at companies by prospecting? And then finally, the final level is you've gone through desire, you've done the repetition, you were disciplined, you started and maintain a routine like brushing your teeth, and then finally you hit habit. If you spend the time to work through those levels, that is the best tip I can give you, because that means you're going to be a sales conversation expert. You're going to know how to get in the door. Whatever it is that you set your mind to, you're going to reach that goal because you've made it a part of who you are. And that is the advice that I give to all of you. And there is a level. There are levels. People don't look at it that way. I hear desire a lot. I hear discipline a lot. That's not getting there. There's 5.
Okay. Read the 5 again. Desire.
Yep. Repetition.
Discipline.
Routine.
Routine.
And then finally habit.
Okay, I'm writing them down. And
So,
how do you get there?
The way you get there in my world, what I recommend is you do something called habit stacking. Okay. So for example,
of course you got a tech stack, a sales stack. Marylou's got a habit stack.
I stole this from somebody.
Unbelievable.
A book I read somewhere. I'm sure I stole it.
Okay, go ahead. So you got the habit stack.
Essentially, the habit stacking is you take a ridiculously simple habit that you're trying to accomplish. Mine was, by the time I turned 60, I wanted to do a 60-second handstand. And I also wanted to be able to do 15 push-ups without killing myself. So I had to start with one push-up. The stacking part of the habit means I do my coffee in the morning and I make my coffee. While my coffee was brewing, I did one push-up.
That's amazing.
So every time I did coffee, I did a push-up. Every time I did coffee, I tried to do a handstand. And eventually over time, that stack went from one push-up to 2 push-ups to 5 push-ups to 10 push-ups. And now it's routinely between 12 and 20.
That's incredible.
I tied it to when I was doing my coffee.
Yeah. So like you forced yourself to have to do something before you could get the reward. It was like a reward system.
It's just aligning it. Look, I'm doing my coffee. I do that every day. I'm going to do something ridiculously simple, like drop down and do one push-up. So maybe you're going to say, I'm going to do something ridiculously simple by finding an objection that I want to overcome and writing the answer to that objection.
This is what I have to do with the book. I've been telling myself for 5 years I wanted to write a book. And then I applied. So stupid, right? I applied. Hey, writing a book is stupid, but if you could get through it, like awesome. But your habit, so like you just got to create these daily. It sounds like the daily routine. It's the day in the life that Aaron talked about in Predictable Revenue. It all comes together. It's consistency of effort, but it's also maximizing your return on effort. So my coffee and my one push-up was done within the same period of time. It was nothing off of me to drop down and do one. So those tiny habits, when they're linked to habits that you're already doing, that you do every day, put those tiny habits in with the things you do every day. And eventually they're going to break off and they're going to become their own habit. And then you add something else in. So you're constantly adding new tiny little habits, the ones that you know will build towards that elephant of success that you're looking for. And over time, you'll reach it. That's incredible.
You can't not.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I posted a video about daily habits and how critical they are and how it creates compounding interest. Kind of like you said, 1 to 2, 2 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 100. It's the easiest thing to say to do, but it's the hardest thing to continue to do because the desire's there. Like let's use me. Like I always wanted to do this book, Sales Secrets from the Top 1%. So you said desire, discipline, repetition.
Repetition second, because from desire, like the beginning of the year, from desire, you go down and you work out maybe every day.
Yep.
Or you try to, but then all of a sudden, the end of January, I can skip today. I can skip.
Yeah, that's like how I write.
Right? So
I'll do like 7 days and then I'll quit. I'll stop and miss a day.
So you've got to do it every day, repetition. Now, repetition can mean different things
prospecting.
For people. It could be 3 times a week is repetition for me. Whatever your goal for repetition is, stick to it. Once you do that and it's like second nature, then it's discipline of continuing. So you don't break the chain. You keep going. And then from there, it becomes a routine. I walk my dogs every day. It's a routine. They don't really need to be walked. I live in Iowa. We have a lot of property, but I walk them. Okay. So that's a routine. And then that becomes habit. And once that becomes habit, then you are getting further to your goal. You don't even realize you're getting further because you're enjoying yourself so much.
Because now you went from like the hard part to the fun part.
To the fun part.
Yeah.
So for me, I love teaching people about objection handling.
I love it. I'm writing 10 books on it. Dude, Marylou, you and I are going to write a book together. I'm putting this into the universe. I swear on my, I am going to close Marylou on doing an objection book with her because I met like my person. Because I'm a salesperson turned engineer and
I'm the opposite. Yeah.
And you're the opposite.
So those are things, and that we love to do. And habits are usually things we love to do, or we don't even think about it because we're doing them. And that's where we want to get to. But to get there, you have to go through those 5 levels. So it's harder at first, but then you start seeing it. I mean, that's why I start my people when I'm working with clients. We don't use a tech stack. We don't use tools. We do everything manually because we're trying to prove the adherence to habit and making sure that we can do this without the technology. And then when the technology hits, wow, now we have more time to master the sales conversation because we're not doing a lot of things manually that the technology allows us to do repeatably, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It's just, they're all so grateful when we get the tech stack and they're all ready to go and learning and mastering the sales conversation because the repeatable tasks are now taken care of.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you teach them the foundations without any tech, like how to have those sales conversations, how to make the calls, the emails, the social touches, how to define the TAM, how to connect, clearly articulate the, the story, the competitive position, the account-based sales development approach without any tech. And then after you have all those scripts and all of that jazz and your lists and everything, to acquire your TAM.
Upload it in, boom.
Yeah, and then it's
then the spinning plates. Then we add the A/B split testing. We add the multiple personas. We try to do generic evergreen versus personalized campaign. Then everything's available for us to just go at it.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah. Marylou, this has been amazing. I cannot believe that today is our announcement of writing a new book together. Absolutely incredible. For the community, for everyone's going nuts on my stream feeds too. They're like, oh my gosh, you guys got to write a book together, blah, blah. Kevin says, absolutely. I'm going to be the first one to buy it. Let me know when it's on Amazon. Kevin, we will get it on Amazon here shortly for pre-orders. Danielle's like, absolutely. OMG, OMG. XO, love Marylou. Yeah, me too, XO. No, this is amazing. Marylou, where can people connect with you, subscribe, follow you for more?
MarylouTyler.com is my website. On there, I've posted my office hours, my Calendly connections, so you can connect with me and actually speak with me. I love talking with you all. We are in outreach, so that means you reach out. And that's why I put my phone number and my calendar there so we can talk. So that's one place to go. LinkedIn, Marylou Tyler. I post articles every so often. And then I have predictableedu.com, which is a portal that I'm working on to put some training materials that are complementary, and then working on a certification class as well. It's not together yet. I did one last year to get people really good on prospecting and the process of prospecting. So those 3 areas, you can meet me and talk to me anytime via just picking up that phone.
Pick up the phone and make sure you pick up. I've gotten so much value, and I've dramatically increased my potential by ordering and reading Predictable Prospecting on Amazon by Marylou and Jeremy, Predictable Revenue by Marylou and Aaron Ross. And just because Predictable Prospecting is out, a few years old, it doesn't matter. There's still things that you can learn. I go back and I read it every month. I read these things over and over again, because where you're at today, and you read something, when you do it again in the future, you'll pick something up. Like Marylou goes through so many great things on starting a conversation, landing meetings through targeted campaigns, optimizing sales development, performance metrics, identifying prospects with the greatest potential, how to prospect them, articulating your company value prop and your position in the market to win new deals. Like, pick up the books, follow her, connect with her. And thank you so much, Marylou Tyler. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
You're an inspiration and a motivation and education and advisor to me and thousands of people. So I'm so glad that you write those 2 things down, and those 2 things about helping other people, and you're afraid that you've got all this stuff in your head. And thank you so much for sharing it. We look forward to learning more from you. And thank you, audience, for tuning in to this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Order your copy at secretsalesbook.com, secretsalesbook.com. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%. We release new episodes every Monday and Thursday, so make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube to never miss an episode.